traffic congestion, potholes, road construction, highway maintenance. These are all elements said to contribute to Hawaii consistently getting a low or failing grade in nationwide surveys on roads. Poor design is cited as a safety problem and contributes to pocketbook issues for motorists. Why is that? Can anything be done to change it? Join the conversation about failing the road test. Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of insights on PBS Hawai'i start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. You don't have to go far in Hawaii to find a street or a highway plagued by potholes or other problems. A national research group said Honolulu ranked 5th on a list of 20 urban areas with the worst roads in the country. Surveys on Hawaii's infrastructure released last month said motorists here pay an average of $764 a year in automotive repair because of bad roads. Other statistics suggest poor road design makes our roads more prone to fatal crashes. Our guests tonight include officials from the city and state agencies that deal with roads, an engineering professor from UH Manoa, and an executive from a highway paving industry. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. Now to our guests. Ed Sniffen is the Deputy Director of the Highways Division for the Hawaii State Department of Transportation. Robert Croning is the Director of the Department of Design and Construction for the City and County of Honolulu. John Romanowski, a civil engineer and vice president of James Glover Limited, which has been building roads in Hawaii since the 1930s. He represents the road paving industry. And Ricardo Archilla is an associate professor in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at UH Manoa. He's an expert on pavement design and performance, as well as traffic engineering and safety. And let me just ask all of you, I'll start with you, Ed. Do we deserve the reputation that we have? These rankings, they're pretty consistently bad.
Yeah, we do. We absolutely do. And it's based on our policies that we had in the past and how we went forward. In the past, we would focus our funding and our resources on building new roads to build new capacity because nobody wants to get stuck in traffic. But we let the preservation of the system go away. So now we're refocusing on that to ensure that we can bring the maintenance up on the roads.
And the city and county, you guys have a lot of roads too.
We do, Daryl, and I would agree with Ed that we probably deserve the ranking, although I would love to see a ranking of somewhat not too distant future to now and see what they would say about the improvement that's been made. I think we've invested quite a bit of money in the last 6-7 years in, as my staff likes to say, making up for the past sins of the city and repaving a lot of roads.
John Romanowski with Glover, a company has been building roads and maintaining roads. Now, you get a lot of contracts from these guys, so it might be a little awkward. But I mean, how do you rate the condition of the roads out there?
I would say in general that we deserve our poor condition, but I would also agree with Robert that it's been improving. And the way I like to think about it is Honolulu is a very dense, urban place, and the neighbor islands to some degree. But Hawaii really grew up with roads that were built by the plantations, some by the military. Some of our main thoroughfares were built for horses. And as time went on, and people started paving, they just paved over what was there.
Oh, the ancient trails.
And then they paved over what was there. And they were never actually built or designed or constructed for the type of traffic they have today.
And it's like too late now.
Well, it's not too late, but it's very expensive now. And it's been 3 years we did Waialae Avenue,
Right.
And you know what? We dug it down 18 inches, and in some places we had to go more. We found concrete roads, trolley tracks, chicken coops, fire pits, people's foundations. It just it started as a skinny road and just grew and grew and grew.
Turned into an archaeological dig.
Yeah, but you know what? We went from the bottom up. It took a long time, but now it's in good shape.
Ricardo Archilla from UH. Are these statistics fair? I mean, you're a scientist. You know how to measure something like this. Is it these ratings that we keep getting? Are they generally fair, or do they sometimes pick and choose?
Well, most of the ratings I see are based on something called the International Roughness Index, or IRI. And one problem I have with that is that that doesn't measure the condition of the pavement, it measures the rideability. And doing some research for the DOT, one of the things I found, our roads, consistently we get higher roughness almost from the start. And one of the things I can say probably is related to the much higher proportion of sections where we go from a cut section to a fill section. Whenever you have to fill a road, a big embankment, you have to compact it, and that typically leads to more roughness of the road. So we deserve the where we are, but no, I'm not necessarily sure that it's that bad like the index are pointing out.
Well, if I could say, so this isn't making excuses, because obviously when you drive, everybody knows the roads in certain areas are certainly bad. But one of the things a lot of these surveys seem to do is evaluate things that aren't really related to the road and the road pavement itself. They evaluate costs of repairs and costs of this. And so that, because Hawaii is an expensive place, we somewhat get probably skewed in some of the ratings, but it's still, I mean, everybody who drives a road around here knows that there are certain areas that are still in pretty bad shape.
You know, I think a lot of the perception too is like I just not too long ago did a long road trip with my family. We drove from Canada all the way down to, from Vancouver all the way down to Southern Oregon and, you know, and back again. And it never seemed like the roads. It was like you could count on one hand the places that we ran into that were bad. What do you think? Do you think, John, that it's a perception problem too? That people are just so used to really smooth roads on the mainland that just the nature of our roads here, it's hard to justify?
I would say that's probably true. But you know, you mentioned driving from Canada south, but that's not an urban core, right? And many of our, even on the neighbor islands, many of our highways have water lines in them. They have, you know, electrical utilities, sewers. So because we are so densely populated, and maybe a better way to say it is Hawaii has by far the least amount of roads per capita, the least lane miles per capita, which means we have a lot more traffic on our roads, and we have a lot more utilities in them.
And I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think the point you make about the utilities you have on the state roads, you know, in other states you don't have as many manholes, and each time you hit one of those, your vehicle bumps a little bit, and it goes in the measurements.
Do you feel like, you know, this discussion though is, John makes a good point about capacity. Are our roads more overburdened than in other places?
Absolutely. When we start looking at the volumes, so we have 2,500 lane miles of state roads. That's roughly a third of the roads in the state, because the other 2/3 are owned by the counties. But those 1/3 roads take 2/3 of the traffic. So when we start looking at the volumes per day, not only are they high, but they're much higher than they were designed for initially. H1, when it was built in the 60s, the designers looked at a curve and said, we got 30,000 vehicles on the road today. So when they started doing their curves over the next 20 years, they expect 60,000 vehicles. But they went conservative and designed it for 90,000. Today we have 270,000 vehicles going through that corridor. So I mean, it's
literally 3 times more than the maximum design number.
Exactly, and that's just not a capacity thing. That's a volume, or that's a structure thing too. So when we start looking at readjusting the structures to ensure that we take not only the volumes but the loads that are necessary today, it's a lot of money to ensure that we fix it. But we went through that H1 area. We spent $100 million to ensure that we picked up the pavement in that area, so it's in good condition.
But you mentioned earlier that you had to shift your priority from adding capacity to maintaining the roads, but it sounds like you also don't have nearly enough capacity.
So absolutely, and there's several things. For us, because we're an island state, because we're real estate limited, we will never be able to build enough capacity. In reality, the only thing that's going to solve our capacity issues is adjusting the demand, not adjusting the supply. So when we start looking at the needs of the system going forward, adding a lane in, say, that same area, H1 eastbound area, would be about $120 million. And once we add that lane, in general, what we see is within 3 months, there's an adjustment, and that lane is filled. So we don't see it as a good investment anymore. We start looking at other ways to improve congestion, but also improve the conditions first.
Yeah, is the city taking steps to try and reduce the number of cars on the road? Or do you think that's a big issue for the city as well?
Oh, it certainly is. So we have, well, we're also counting on millennials who seem to not want to drive as much anyway, so we're hoping that that's going to happen. But the TOD, the transit-oriented development, is supposed to encourage that by building most of the growth throughout Oahu around the rail stations and around certain corridors, so that people can live in a much smaller area and they don't need as many cars and they don't need to travel as much. So it's a big program we have.
So we've got our first question here, and it's right in the sweet spot for most of our panel. Do pavements in Hawaii last as long as pavement in the average mainland states? Let me start with the pavement guy.
I would say if they're built right, they do, and if they're built and designed for the road traffic they have, then yes. The thing Hawaii does not have, we don't have freeze-thaw cycles.
What's that?
We don't have freeze and thaw cycles,
Oh, right,
winter time and
that's-
snow plows, and so our roads don't get that kind of wear, but we still have big temperature differences. You know, the pavements between the nighttime and the middle of the day, the temperature differentials are big. What are they, like 40, 50
40
degrees?
Celsius. Around that's
40 Celsius?
Yeah, yeah.
That's big.
yeah,
Yeah, so
Let's not do Celsius.
yeah, so they do get a lot of.
Unfortunately, the drops I put in Celsius, but
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So-
I said multiply by 1.8 or something.
mean,
70
in terms of-
degree Fahrenheit. So.
In terms of the technology or the science applied to these roads, I mean, are we at a level of best practice that other people are at, and should our roads be lasting as long?
I mean, we use the same type of design procedures. The mixed designs are done the same way. The asphalt is appropriate for the state. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, road can fail for many reasons. Some of them may be constructions, and there may be design issues, mix issues. So it's very difficult to put the finger where it is. So some projects may not be up to the level, but if they're some pavements are constructed correctly and they last 40 years, or 50 years.
Adding on to that, and adding on to what John said previously, if the goal is to just turn it black, to just rip off the top and put more AC down to look like you fixed it, it's going to degrade. But when we start looking at spending the money that's necessary to really look at what's necessary for that area, to rebuild the section, the structural section, not just the AC on top, but the structure that supports it,
AC is what?
the asphalt on top.
Okay.
If we rebuild the structure below it, then we know the road's going to last. That all being said, we're still looking at newer material or better materials to see how much more life we can get out of them. We're looking at stone matrix to see what we can get out of that. We know we put it in one area and worked out really well. We're looking at polymer and trained asphalt to see what kind of life extension we can get from those. So we're looking at newer materials to see what advantage we can get.
Do you guys work together to do that, the city and state, in terms of testing new technology?
No, we certainly do, and so a lot of this too has to do with the type of road that you're putting your asphalt concrete on. For highways which don't normally have utilities that go under them, it makes more sense to use something with a modification and give it a lot more strength, which is adding to the cost, but it extends the life. And it's going to extend the life because you don't end up cutting into it. Whereas on a city street, pretty much once you put that pavement down, there's a good chance within a couple of years you're going to have to cut into it because either there's a water main break or new utility has to go in or a development of some sort has to go in. And once you break the pavement, that creates problems. It doesn't matter how good the pavement was to begin with, that's going to cause problems. So it's a cost-benefit analysis that you do. But in the whole, I think the quality of the pavement that we get here is just as good as anywhere else.
Let me ask John Romanowski from the industry. Is it your guys' feeling that you are being asked to do the best materials? And what is the big cost difference between, say, concrete and asphalt? I mean, how much more does it cost to do concrete? And in your mind, should we have more concrete on our roads?
Well, you know, there are certainly places where concrete is a better application. There's places where asphalt is a better application. Currently, of our roads, 94% are asphalt now. But the thing with concrete is you are typically doing a much thicker section, when you build it, whereas you can lay asphalt this thick. Concrete, you really want it to be 8 inches or more. But to really rebuild a road correctly, you have a geotechnical engineer to figure out what's the subgrade. Say this is the bottom you're not going to touch. How strong is that? And what has to go on top of it? And you build up from there using your traffic loads. But I wanted to reiterate something that Ed said. He's talking about stone matrix asphalt, which is very similar to the hot mix asphalt that you see, except we put polymers inside the asphalt oil.
Polymer is a plastic.
A polymer is well, there's a number of different kinds, but it's a, scientific voodoo stuff.
Okay.
No.
That's good enough for me, believe me. That's fine.
But what it does is it makes the asphalt stiffer. And
Okay.
To what Robert said, we did the first stone matrix asphalt job in the state in 2002 in Hilo Harbor. We laid it 12 inches thick. 2 years ago, we had to expand the container yard, and we couldn't cut through it with a saw. We had to hoe ram it. And if you had that on your city streets, and you had a water main break, that would not be a good thing.
Well, that's actually very instructive, because I think that people sometimes ask, well, why don't we just put concrete on all the roads? And you actually, that would be a nightmare if you had a water main break.
Right, you don't want to have to be cutting through concrete every time you need to get underneath the roads. Yeah.
Okay, I've got another caller calling in. Caller wonders if there is a connection between high pedestrian fatalities and poor road conditions. Are drivers focus more on avoiding potholes and less on pedestrians crossing? I mean, it's a fair question. It does bring up the issue of safety. We have an alarming number of fatalities in the last couple of years. I mean, how much do you folks think that is because of the condition or design of our roads?
So what I see from the pavement conditions, in areas where we take a poor pavement area, we reconstruct it, in all cases, speed goes up. So in reality, the poor pavement slows people down. And I'm not saying that we need poor pavement to slow people down. But what I am saying is speed kills. Right now, what we're seeing is a lot of fatalities that are occurring that should not be occurring because of excessive speeding, because somebody's drunk, because somebody's on their phone rather than paying attention to the road. That's what we're seeing as the cases. When police do their investigations, those are the causes. So 94% of the fatalities that occur are all human error. So totally understand that the roadway is a concern, but in reality, a poor road slows people down. And when people drive slower, less people die. I'm not going to stop fixing them because of that, but I would ask people to slow down, though.
It's an interesting point, though. But also, when you do fix roads, particularly I know in the city side, I guess you guys too, you are trying to use the markings and the design to slow people down a little bit, right?
Right. So it's a very complicated issue. Every accident gets an investigation. The police and the Department of Transportation Services, I know, is out there. And we'll do a thorough investigation. And Ed is correct that the majority of the problems aren't the engineering of the road, and it's a human error. It's a problem. And it's not always the driver. A lot of times it is the pedestrian also. Right? When you're out there, you need to be aware of your surroundings and make sure that you're taking precautions. And in this digital age where everybody's in their phone and stuff, the distractions that are out there are more intense. That said, we still look to try to engineer things that will make it even safer. Try to help make it less of a probability that even distracted drivers or distracted pedestrians are going to end up in a dangerous situation. And that's through slowing traffic down in certain ways by putting traffic calming accoutrements in the road, like known as bulb outs here and there. I think the mayor's even talking about trying to restrict right turns on red, reduce those kind of things.
That
So
lasted about a day at the legislature.
yeah. So there's all kinds of things that we're still trying to do. Vision zero. One of the things that is part of Vision Zero is to give pedestrians, priority, 100% priority over all cars. So if you step up to a crosswalk or a signalized light and you push that button, it's going to turn for you immediately. So you get priority and all cars are going to have to stop. It's going to cause traffic problems, but at least, it may save. So we're still looking at those kind of things to see if that's really what we want this city to be.
Well, let me ask Ricardo Arquilla from UH. Are there things that we haven't done here that have been done in other places that are successful in terms of protecting pedestrians and making the road safer for drivers as well? Is there more that could be done in that respect?
Yeah, well, in terms of pedestrians, I cannot say much. I have not looked at that in much detail. In terms of on state roads, things that you try to make is the road is more forgiving. Like they say, the causes typically are people distracted or drunk driving, things like that. So if you have a car going out of a road, you want to make the road more forgiving. So we are using pretty much most of the tools that are used in other places. We're putting more rumble strips. We're putting also chevron signs in more curves. One of the things that I'm finding with the state is that curvature is important, and it's very difficult to change the road. But of course, if you have a road where you have a certain curve, it matters whether you come from a stretch where it's straight or it's a winding road. So even those kind of things are important. So
that reminds me of the state is constantly getting sued over conditions that were either known or should have been known, and then a rock falls on someone. There was a $3 million settlement this year on that. There were settlements where at the turn from Leaky onto H3, there were several accidents. How able are you to identify and address those kind of places where it's dangerous for the drivers? Are you good at that? How, is that something you could get better at? I mean,
Absolutely.
So are there a lot of places where you think more needs to be done?
I think we're very good at it, and I think we can always get better at it. There's always better tools that come through. But again, when we start looking at those areas, like the turn on Leaky going into H1 or H3, it's a speed thing. So the correction that the courts had asked us to take a look at is adding more signage.
Oh, that'll work.
But the people who got hurt have been driving that route for a while. So it's really an awareness thing. It's really a speed thing. And if everybody was more aware and everybody drove the speed limit, that's what the roads are built for. That's what they're designed for. It'd be much safer for everybody.
What about what is being done in that respect? I mean, in terms of the safety issue, are there enough police officers out there, in the city's mind? Is there enough traffic enforcement going on the part of the police? Would that be helpful, for example?
Oh, that's a little out of my lane, but I would say you can never have enough police to actually cover every spot that could be an accident. So I would say you can't solve this problem with police. You have to solve it with education, and you have to solve it with technology and things that we're continuing to look into on how we design the roads. You've probably heard the term complete streets. Well, that's a major effort in both state and city and county law that every time we have a street that we're getting ready to repave or even just resurface, we need to analyze the entire right of way to make sure that it is a safe avenue and a multimodal avenue. So if we can make it more conducive for people to ride bicycles and for people to walk, that'll also reduce the number of cars on the road and create a much better environment for safety.
Okay, let me just really quickly, because I want to make sure I continue to respect our callers coming in. And this is for John Romanowski from the industry, and then you guys could. Is it true that bad roads are because the work is done by the lowest bidder?
Well, the work is almost always done by the lowest bidder. That's what typically this system is. But you know what? Everybody that bids on the jobs has to be qualified. They have to be able to get a bond. They have to have the experience to do it, and they have to follow the specifications and follow the plans.
Yeah, so I would say the answer is no. I think our contractors do really good work. One of the reasons that I see our roads not lasting as long as they should in a lot of areas on the state side is we didn't maintain them well.
We didn't what?
We didn't maintain them well.
Oh, okay.
So once your pavement starts cracking and water starts getting down into your base, you start losing integrity of your section already. If we had a program from a while ago moving forward to ensure that we're sealing those cracks, to ensure that we're making sure that we recover the pavement area to make sure that it doesn't get brittle, to make sure that we extend the life of the pavement by putting in these little effects every 3 to 5 years, I think we'd see all of our pavement last a lot longer, whether the structure was good or not. We weren't good at that before. We changed our system to make sure that we put into a maintenance program these effects. So you'll see, even though we're just reconstructing Pali now, within 3 to 5 years, we're going to go back out and do a fog seal or some kind of crack seal to ensure that that pavement that's in good condition stays in good condition longer.
To also jump on the quality and the low bidder, I agree. I think the quality of the paving companies around here is top notch, but we don't just rely on that. We have a very talented, well-trained inspection program within the city. So your civil servants are out there watching the contractors do their work. And so if they were to take any shortcuts, even though it's a low bid or whatever, our inspectors would catch them and make them redo it. So the safety in the low bid myth is that we have a well-trained inspection program.
Yeah, and I agree with Ed in terms of preserving the pavements. That's something, you know, it didn't used to be like it is now. There was a lot of money, so you could rebuild, and now that's not happening anymore. So we have to think more like maintaining our cars, changing the oil. So what he's saying, okay, we build the road and then you maintain it. So you apply a slurry seal or some type of very thin treatment that is not to add anything to the structure of the pavement, but is to keep it going. The surface stays in good condition for longer time. You crack the seal so the water doesn't go in the structure.
It must have driven you crazy to see roads that you paved 2 years ago suddenly deteriorating.
Well, you know, it's...
and they're blaming you. They're going, you know.
Well, no, I've been doing this 25 years. I get it. But and there has in the past been a push by the industry and by folks in the different agencies to do pavement preservation. But quite honestly, it never really got off the ground. And my explanation is it's something that's boring. And when, you know, lawmakers want to push for something, or, you know, people in the agencies do turn over at the top of the agencies and have different priorities. But you know what? This should be something, quite frankly, we don't even have to talk about and don't have a show about. It should be so boring. We do it all the time. And you know what? These guys are doing it. But it's not going to be great for a while.
In your experience, are the government agencies better now at just paying attention to the blocking and tackling of road maintenance?
Yeah, and these guys work together better than I've seen before, and they do have plans, and they are working on stuff, but it's slow and it's boring, and you don't see results like that. But you're going to see them in 5, 10 years. You're going to.
About that, you know, I came about 17 years ago here, and for a period of time, we abandoned the roads, right?
Yeah.
And once you let the network go down, it will take you years to get.
Who made the decision to abandon the roads?
So I'm not going to speak for any other previous administration, but what I will say is the previous legislations from the federal government that funded our highways programs, the edict was build out your system.
You get 80% of a highway from the federal government.
Yeah, and the edict was build your roads, build out your system, build it up to make sure that we spur this economic development. The edict's changed now. They said, you know, we know that everybody needs more money, but you guys got a 60-year-old system right now that you need to take care of. So the edict is pushed back towards maintain what you have and make sure that what you have works better every day.
Did the federal government fund maintenance?
Well, not maintenance, but they fund CIP work to increase the maintenance of the system. So when we started pushing our program towards preservation and safety, the federal government was absolutely behind it to make sure that the number of roads that we have in poor condition decreased tremendously. Number of roads that we have in fair condition increased to good very quickly. So they were all behind our approach.
You know what was interesting, quoting from the city, it's interesting that John Romanowski's talking about it being boring. The mayor adopted this program of paving roads, and frankly, it's kind of boring. I mean, I've covered like 4 or 5 press conferences. Oh, we paved another road. It looks just like the last road that they paved. It's like, what are you going to take a picture of? Oh, I'm happy I got my road paved. You know, it's boring in a sense of politically boring, but the mayor did make it a priority. And you folks, the last time we spoke about it, he said that it's actually getting cheaper. per however you measure it.
Right.
And why is that? How does that mechanism work that when you're doing more, it gets cheaper?
Well,
Because I have a question, so I'm sorry.
no, that's good.
I want to acknowledge that we did get a question from a viewer. This is what brought this question to my mind. Would we have better roads if we had more paving contractors and more competition?
That is a good question. So the boring part of this, my life is not boring because the mayor calls me almost every day about a road and a pothole that he wants me to go out and fix right away. So it may be boring for most, but it keeps me up at night. The program, so he has, and I think you guys understand, he has made it a priority, and that's really what it takes. So as Ed said, we don't want to speak about past administrations. I mean, they had different priorities. So they wanted to tackle other things, and the roads suffered, and why I said the past sins of the city when it comes to roads. And we're catching up now. And so we've paved, a ridiculous amount, more than ever before. I think it's well over 2,000 roads in the 5-6 years that the administration has been there. And by doing that, by investing the money, so it's the mayor that made it a priority and was supported by the city council to actually fund it. And the city council did a good job. They quite often added a little extra onto what the administration was asking. By doing that, and I apologize, this maybe not good for you, but it brought in a couple other paving companies. We had a company from Nevada come in and set up shop in Hawaii, and we've had a company from Maui get more interested in this. And so yes, that competition has certainly brought the cost of repaving, resurfacing roads down, and we've been getting a great bang for our buck.
John, in that respect, though, also if you're getting more of that work, don't your people get a little more skilled? You're actually able to do more faster?
Just to some degree, but we love competition. It makes everybody better. One of the answers to the question is that the city really bit the bullet, and they did some of the hardest roads and most heavily traveled roads first. And they did some of the very expensive roads in the first few years, right?
Right, but there's still, as you know, quite a few to go.
Yeah, there is,
Work
but
to do.
I think some of the roads that are going to be less expensive to rebuild are the ones coming up.
I got 3 questions about this word that I didn't think were going to come up because I'm such a wonk on these things. And we were saying earlier, should we talk about coordination? And I got 3 questions about coordination. Kailo resident was happy to see recent coordination between road repair and sewer line. Will this be a new practice for future work? It seems more efficient. What type of coordination is there between government leaders and planning departments? If we're maxed out with space, why are new condos and other development being allowed? That's got a little extra spin on it. And what coordination is there between the road builders and the Board of Water Supply and their aging system? Let's just start off generally between the coordination between the state and the city. I mean, I think it strikes a lot of people that you go down a road and when it's no longer a city road, it deteriorates, or when there's completely different conditions, it feels like, on a state road or a city road. And how do you explain that difference in conditions in the same place?
It wasn't coordinated.
Okay.
I mean, very clearly, very, very simply. Right now, the great thing is we have 2 administrations that absolutely get along really well. The governor and the mayor really, really get along well, and that's throughout the state with all the mayors. We also have directors and administrators that get along really well. So all of our plans are contingent on each other. We really cannot, if we're here to serve the public, we cannot do that just in our own little realm. So we know we've got to coordinate throughout the city, and not just with Rob and his group. For instance, on Poly Highway, that project was delayed 2 years.
Which Poly Highway project?
The one that's going right now. We could have started
the repair of the mountain?
No, the reconstruction of the roadway.
Okay.
That could have happened 2 years ago, but we delayed it because we had Leaky Lake going at the same time, and the city had some work going on the windward side. Plus, when we started talking to ENV, the environmental services side, they had a relief sewer that was going to go in. So we made sure that we coordinated our project so everything would get done at the same time. That's the level. So we're not just coordinating on the road side. We're looking at all utility sides.
When you do that, does the project itself take a little bit longer?
It may take a little longer to put out, but if you look at the overall project length, because ENV would have come in later anyway, it would have taken the same time. So holding the project to ensure that we could coordinate not only our traffic control, our designs, but also making sure that we minimize any impact we have to the public.
Robert Cronin, on that topic, I want to make sure that we do follow some of these questions. This mention of the Board of Water Supply, I think that people feel like it's crazy how often these water mains break, often in very close proximity to one another. I think on my street there were 4 water main breaks in a period of a month, and there's big patches where the holes were and so on. How much of a problem is our aging water supply system, for example, for your ability to keep up with the roads?
Well, it's certainly a problem. I mean, every time it breaks, it does break the integrity of the road. And it's true, I guess the Board of Water Supply should probably be saying the same thing. The past sins of the water supply has let the system get so deteriorated. And it is, it's very old. I know there's, they have a master plan to get through and repair and replace all the old infrastructure that they have. But as far as, I can get a little more into the weeds on some of the coordination. We have, our Department of Facility Maintenance coordinates a monthly meeting of all the utilities and all the other agencies that have anything to do with a right-of-way. And they meet once a month to talk about what's coming up, who's got what projects going on. Let's make sure these are coordinated. It's not only the Board of Water Supply, but HECO, Hawaii Gas, Hawaiian Tel, Spectrum, State attends. All these agencies attend to do the coordination to make sure that we try to do things smartly. Some of the, whether it takes longer or not, if a lot of that depends on the funding cycle, right? When the money's actually available to use. So sometimes we will delay it a little to make sure the funding of the other project catches up, and then we'll do them together. But if the funding is all at the same time, in the end, the project will go probably faster than if it weren't, and you'll have less problems later.
Totally agree.
Professor Archia, this coordination issue, is it a problem in other places, or are we worse at it than most?
I think it's a problem everywhere. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience in other places of the U.S., but I can tell you back in Argentina, yes, we have the exactly same problem. So I think it's a
so us in Argentina,
so.
right there. Argentina is a sophisticated country. I don't mean to suggest anything other than that.
No, it's okay.
This is again the third question on coordination was about coordinating about capacity. And I think that there's some real legitimate questions here, because the state and the city might have different ideas of where to add capacity. So what drives me crazy, and I'm lucky to have this show, I can ask these questions, but like, for example, Farrington Highway between Kapolei and Waipahu, right?
You had to bring that one up. Huh?
I always do. Whose road is that?
That section is city.
Okay, and then it's 2 lanes, and it goes from where there's no traffic on the highway to where there's a lot of traffic on the highway. It would be nice if that could be truly a reliever road, but it's not. So why don't you beef that up to help the state with its capacity problems on H1?
We are. It's just it's taking a while. And because of the development that's going on there, Ho'opili is being developed. Clearly there's a need to increase the capacity. And so we are, right now we're in the environmental assessment stage, and we got to go and make sure that all the impacts of this new project that we're going to put in are acceptable, or at least if there's any dangers environmentally, we mitigate for them. So we're there, and then we're also getting ready to start the design, and it takes that process.
So the larger question, though, when you talked about putting in new developments or you're putting in a rail system, because the rumor was always that, oh, the reason that the city doesn't improve a road is because they want to make life miserable for drivers, so they use the rail, right? I mean, that was the scuttlebutt for a long time. How do you guys talk to each other about, oh, we're going to have this big project coming in, and you need to start looking at, you know, it's going to be too much for your highway. I know up in Waikele, where they're building Koa Ridge, you know, I mean, it's hard to imagine that there's enough road there. How do you guys work that out?
So anytime a developer comes into the city or to the state Land Use Commission or the city's Department of Planning and Permitting for entitlements, they must go to the departments to check in on what impacts they need to mitigate. Every project. So everyone who comes in is required to mitigate their direct impacts. So when Hawai'i comes in, they're directly impacting a lot of city roads. Right. They're going to pay for those upgrades for those city roads directly. They're also indirectly affecting a lot of state roads. They're paying percentages or performing projects to ensure they mitigate their impacts on those roads. The difficulties though, when we start looking at the bottlenecks on our system, on the state system, you get past H1, H2 merge, if you live on one side of the merge versus the other, it's a significant time frame that you change, right? That Waiava interchange is the bottleneck. So no matter what's done west of that, once you hit that, you're stuck. So until that portion gets increased in capacity or the parallel routes get increased, our system is kind of locked at a capacity. That being said, when you look at that route in that area, there's no place to go. There's no place to increase the capacity there. So we're trying to figure that out. That all being said, we still work with all land use that comes through to ensure that everything's coordinated from that perspective.
Right, and there's all types of studies that are done. There's traffic studies that are done with the proposal of the development that comes in and whatever the planned increase in population has to be done. And I don't know whether it's 25 or 50 years out, but they got to look into the future as to what the impacts are going to be.
That's the developer has to do a traffic study for his project and walk in with that for his permitting.
Yes. All for the permitting and so forth. And so one of the things, because our desire is not really to increase a lot of capacity if we don't have to. So one of the things that, as they're doing their traffic studies, especially in Ho'opili area, they should be taking into consideration that at some point in time there is going to be the rail, and that should reduce some of the need for cars, so that will affect their traffic study. And that's the real goal, is to try to make it an environment where people don't have to get in their car so often. So that's a big goal of ours.
And it's different. I recall hearing you say once that if we add a lot of capacity now, when truly new technology comes in, smart cars, smart roads, the better coordination between the vehicles as well as transit, there's going to be either no traffic congestion or big highways we don't need. I mean, do we have any idea what that looks like?
No. So exactly, and that's the whole discussion here. I mean, when we spoke about the H1 corridor, when we looked at 90,000 vehicles per day going to 270, from the beginning we were not very good at projecting. We projected very low from the beginning when the system was built out. Ever since then, we've projected extremely high. So we've been building out capacities in the past that were generally too high for what we're looking at, as if we're looking at the 25-year period. Now with all the disruptors in the market, with the TNCs, the Ubers and Lyfts, with rail coming through, with the different types of technologies coming through, and with the millennials who really don't show the interest in driving. When we start looking at that, I cannot even tell you in 10 years what the capacity needs are going to be. So given all of that, putting the focus on making sure that the system is increasing its maintenance in better quality, making sure that it's safer now, that it operates better, making sure that the congestion areas that we can take care of without adding lanes, we take care of in other ways, operational ways, is a smart way to invest our money now to ensure that we're ready for these disruptors to come through.
This is why we have people at the university to be able to predict all these things. Right?
That's why I depend on Ricardo.
There's a lot of estimates that automated vehicles are going to decrease delays significantly. Of course, it's going to. I don't want to make predictions because I would never predict. I would never have predicted to be talking with people on the phone, right?
Okay,
so that's. So the technology is advancing rapidly. The question is going to be how fast it's going to be adopted, and also. For a while, we're going to be having those new technologies combined with people who don't have it. So, and that makes the system inefficient. So it's going to take a while until we get to that point.
But there will come a time, you think, that technology will make a lot of highway space obsolete?
I don't think it will be obsolete, but it can improve significantly the capacity of the roads.
Absolutely.
Particularly intersections is one of the. And when he talks about system that we have a bottleneck in one place, unless you fix the bottleneck, no matter what you do upstream, it's going to be not useless, but it's going to be kind of like a parking lot. If these technologies have the potential to significantly improve those bottlenecks. So.
Okay, as I expected, I'm starting to get our calls now from people talking about kind of specific areas, but I like the fact that this person brought up the P word. Why is Cam Highway from Whitmore Village, we'll saw a picture where Whitmore Village is, to Keelani Avenue, and that's in Wahiawa, not getting paved? Is it political influence? First, whose road is that? That's yours.
Yeah.
Okay, so why is it not getting paved?
So we do not consider politics in anything. For us, everything is data driven. So if you go onto our website, we show everything we use to make decisions on how we prioritize our projects. The volumes of the roads, the conditions of the roads, the safety issues on the roads, all of that's on our website to make sure that everybody sees the same information that we do. When we look at the system and prioritize how we look at this, first and foremost, we look at the high volume roads. So if you look at the roads that we take care of so far, we have H1 done. That was one of the worst sections with the highest volumes going through the state. We're doing Poly Highway right now. We did Farrington Highway. So H1 in that area, 270,000 vehicles. Poly Highway, 70,000. Leeward Coast is 55,000. Those are the volumes that we're looking at through those areas. When you look at the volumes of Kamehameha Highway through Whitmore Village, that portion, we're at about 12,000. And it's not insignificant. People still are affected.
That's 12,000 people a day.
Yeah, but that's less than 50,000 and less than 70,000. So we're trying to make sure that we're prioritizing the system to ensure that we impact the most people every time we hit a road.
Let me ask Robert Crody now. I mean, okay, so you've got that, but at the legislature, they'll also tell you, you got to build this road for me. I mean, there's that kind of politics. How do you deal with that?
Show the data. Throughout the 4 years, we've always been data driven and we stuck to it. So there's always requests to build new roads throughout the state. There's always requests to put in new facilities. But if the data doesn't support it, very difficult for us to move forward on that because it's not a good investment to ensuring that the system that we have works better. And the legislators appreciate that.
Does the city have the same kind of thing, or do you get council people saying?
Oh, no, certainly. I mean, there's certain times I'm sure the mayor would love to be able to put more influence on which roads get done. But no, we are similar to the state is data driven. The Department of Facility Maintenance has a program where they go out every so many years and it's called a pavement condition index. So they get the standard of the road, and it's either good condition or poor or satisfactory or fair or something like that. And that's how we develop our program on which roads we need to go do first. Now, of course, sometimes there'll be, for efficiencies, if we're going in an area and some of them are fair, most of them are poor, but some are fair, we'll end up doing the fair roads at the same time just because it makes sense to do it instead of having to come back 2 years later to do it.
So sometimes it looks like a road is getting paved,
That
but it's
doesn't
not as bad a
need it.
shape, and people will call it politicians.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but there's, if you want to preserve the system, once you have a road in good condition, you don't have to let it go in bad conditions. So you have to apply the right treatment to the right road at the right time, and that's a key with those pavement management.
And so you've heard the pavement preservation program, and that's another thing that we have invested a significant amount of money in. And over the last 6 years, I think there's been 200 lane miles where we've put slurry seal and 115 lane miles where we've put seal coating, which is basically, it's like painting your house, right? Every once in a while you have to paint your house to protect it. So we paint the roads and make them last longer, and it's a more efficient way of doing that.
Okay, more calls coming in. This one brings up the money question. Caller wants to know if trucking companies are taxed or assessed extra fees since their vehicles cause more wear and tear on our roads. Well, it's a weight-based tax, right?
It's weight tax.
And they're paying more gas, so they pay more. So they're paying more than a typical vehicle. But again, are either of you satisfied that you have enough money to do what the public expects? Are the same people screaming bloody murder about the roads also not willing to pay more taxes?
I've been very satisfied with the funding that we've been given for the road
repaving
program
issue
right now. Right. So I think.
Do you have enough money to increase capacity and build new roads?
Well, if we wanted to, I think we would. For instance, we're increasing capacity on Salt Lake Boulevard soon too, and so we are putting the money. But as I mentioned before, we would rather not. We would rather make it so we don't need more capacity and have different types of.
No, and you are asking for more money on a consistent basis. What holds you back? That is, what do you need more money for, and what would we see if you had more money?
So if we had the funding that we needed, and we're looking at about another 150 million a year.
I was say thousands.
Yeah. 150 million a year. We start looking at that number. The three things, anytime we go to a public meeting and we talk to the public about what the needs are, first thing they always say is, you know, I was driving through that route and I hit this pothole and I had to go around this really rough area. So really, the roads are in bad condition. Then the next question is, well, you know, I saw a near miss in this area. How many people have to die? Safety is a big concern. And the third is, it takes me 55 minutes to get to this place, and it only takes me 15 minutes to get there when there's no traffic. So capacity, big concern. Those are the three big things we hear from the public, and those are the three big wants from the public. We definitely want to service the public to up to their expectations. We're really only funded to do 2 out of 3. So we ask for additional funding every year to see how we can get additional money there. This year, the legislature, last year they helped us out with the $2 surcharge on top of rental cars. That brings in another 33 million or so per year on the state. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when we bond it, it comes out to a lot of money. Mm-hmm. They're fixing the bill this year. There was a concern from the rental car agencies on the bill. The legislature is fixing this year, so it's going to help us move forward on quite a bit of capacity projects as we move.
Okay, Professor and John Romanowski from the paving industry. Do we have enough money into this system to get it to what people expect? Do we have enough money available?
I'm concerned that we don't. I was looking at some statistics today, and Hawaii has a population of 1.4 million people. We have 1.25 million registered vehicles. That's a lot. That's a lot of vehicles, and you know, we also, because we're in an island state, we use a lot of gas, and we pay a lot for it. But you know, that's where the money comes from, the gas tax. And on the Federal Highway's website, it said the gas tax for Hawaii, I think that goes to the state, is 16 cents. Does that sound right? Mm-hmm. You know how many states charge less than we do? 2. The average gas tax across the United States is 30.6 cents a gallon, and we pay 16 cents.
But is that just the state portion? Or do you guys get some gas tax too, right?
Not really. I think most of ours is coming from the real property tax.
No, you guys get gas tax.
Well,
They get gas tax, but it goes to the whole transportation.
You're not the
just
DTS
roads.
guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, I'm not the DTS guy.
But let me ask, Professor, do you feel like the system is underfunded, or do you think it's inefficient? Because I think those are the two things. When people think that you've got enough money, but they're inefficient. Others say we need more money. Where do you stand on that?
Well, we could make it more efficient. What the right amount of money is, you know, to me the problem of payments is all about resource allocation. I mean, not all about resource, but a big portion is about resource allocation. It's how much money you allocate for new roads, for keeping the roads in good condition, and so pavement preservation helps a lot. But you still have to fix the road in bad condition. Those roads that people are saying we are not
so
paving
it's
it.
prioritizing which of those elements.
And it's not an easy.
Not
you know,
easy.
we all know what to do with our things, but when you have thousands of lane miles to fix, you have to put some priorities.
Okay, so I want to get to the last few questions. We've only got a couple more minutes, so if you could be really quick with your answers. Told that the zipper lane will be extended to Kapolei. What happened to that plan? The bottleneck is horrendous. It's worse in the evening, whether you drive or ride the bus. That's going eastbound, but I mean, there's westbound is just as bad. So
eastbound,
zipper lanes in general. Where are we?
Zipper lane. There was a discussion on extending the zipper lane further. There's 2 structures that need to cross. It costs $82 million. So right now, it's not a priority based on the cost.
$82 million to get it out to Kapolei.
Yes.
How about just north-south road? Just kidding. Okay, when was the last time you drove through Dillingham Boulevard to downtown on the right lane? It feels like riding a horse cart in Amish country in rural America. Whose road is that?
Well, I think we've turned it over to Hart, so it's mostly Hart's. It's a city road, but it's going to be torn up for the rail. So I think we're not.
That's what's going on now with that
Right,
one.
right.
Okay. On the Honolulu Freeway, there is a rectangular bump on the right westbound near Honolulu Guards Entrance. It's almost like hitting a speed bump. Do you know what you're talking about?
Yeah, and then exactly what you're talking about.
Really quick, when will that get
There's
fixed?
an old foundation in that area, concrete foundation that was paved over.
Oh, that's it.
Yep, that's it.
That's too short an answer. I mean, so generally speaking, and I'll let Robert Cronin answer this. Should people be confident about the roads getting better?
Simple answer, I think, is yes. I mean, as we've talked about many times, it's a matter of priorities, and clearly the administrations here have put road maintenance, road fixing as a priority.
Is that kind of a consensus of this panel that it's getting better?
I think so.
Yeah, it's going to take time, but it is getting better.
Very good. Okay, well, thank you all of you and our viewing audience for joining us tonight, and we thank our guests, Ed Sniffen, the Deputy Director of the State Highways Division, John Romanowski, Vice President of James Glover Limited, Robert Cronin, Director of the Department of Design and Construction for the City and County of Honolulu, and Ricardo Achia, Associate Professor in the Civil and Engineering, Environmental Engineering. You got the longest title. Next week on Insights, nearly 10 million tourists visit Hawaii each year. Business is good, but at what cost? Join us for a discussion on managing tourism. I'm Daryl Huff for Insights on PBS Hawaii. Ahui ho.